What if I told you there's a force inside you so potent, so alive, that the world has spent centuries trying to keep it dormant? A power not hidden in some distant myth or reserved for the chosen few, but already there, pulsing in your bones, waiting for you to claim it. Carl Jung, the revolutionary psychologist, discovered something astonishing. Every woman carries within her an entire universe of untapped strength. But here's the unsettling truth. Most women never unlock it. Not because they can't, but because they've been taught not to. Think about it. Why are the most legendary women in history, Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, Frida Kahlo, often painted as almost mythical? As if they were born different. The reality is far simpler and far more terrifying to those in power. They knew themselves. And a woman who knows herself is the most dangerous force on earth. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. Not perfect, not palatable, but complete. It's the moment you stop fracturing yourself to fit into the roles the world hands you. Mother, wife, caretaker, muse, and realize you are not a role. You are a revolution. But here's the catch, this path isn't for the faint of heart. Because the moment you start peeling back the layers of who you've been told to be, you'll meet resistance from others, yes, but worse, from yourself. The fear, the guilt, the voice whispering, "Who do you think you are?" That voice? That's not yours. That's the echo of centuries of conditioning. And the first step to breaking free is hearing it for what it is. But what happens when you do break free? When you stop shrinking to fit into the spaces others have carved for you? That's when the real transformation begins. And that's when the world flinches. Imagine this, you wake up one morning and decide no more masks. No more twisting yourself into shapes that don't fit. No more swallowing your voice to keep others comfortable. What do you think happens next? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world pushes back. Because a woman who refuses to fragment herself, who owns her darkness as fiercely as her light, is a threat to every system built on her silence. Jung called this rejected darkness the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've been taught to hide. Our rage, our ambition, our unapologetic hunger. And here's the paradox. The more we exile these parts, the more power they steal from us. Think about it. How many times have you bitten back your truth to avoid being called too much, too emotional, too intense, too needy? But what if that too much was never a flaw? What if it was your strength, distorted by a world afraid of its force? Jung believed that real power isn't found in perfection. It's found in reclamation. The moment a woman stops apologizing for her depth, for her contradictions, her messy humanity, she becomes unstoppable. Because she's no longer fighting herself. She's free. But freedom has a cost. History shows us the pattern. Women who step into their full power are called witches, rebels, dangerous, because a system that profits from your self-doubt cannot afford your self-awareness. So the question isn't if you'll face resistance, it's how you'll meet it. And that's where the most ancient battle begins. The one inside you. What if your fear isn't a wall, but a doorway? Jung uncovered a radical idea. The things we're most afraid of, our shadows, our unacceptable desires, even our rage, aren't obstacles. They're guides. They point directly to where our power has been waiting. Think about the last time you felt that electric jolt of, I want this, but I shouldn't. That tension, that's the sound of a buried part of you pounding on the walls of your consciousness, demanding to be let in. Society calls this selfishness. Jung calls it individuation, the alchemical process of turning fear into fuel. Here's the secret. The world doesn't fear a woman who fits in. It fears the woman who refuses to. The one who stops asking, am I allowed to want this? And starts declaring, this is mine. But this isn't about rebellion for its own sake. It's about sovereignty. The moment you realize your worth isn't negotiable, that you don't need permission to exist fully, a shift happens. The same systems that once controlled you, they lose their grip. Jung's work reveals that true power isn't about conquering the external world. It's about reclaiming your inner territory. Every time you silence yourself to keep the peace, you hand over a piece of your soul. But when you stand in the fire of your own truth, that's when the magic happens. And yet, what happens when you fully step into this power? When the masks are off, the shadows are embraced, and the world can no longer define you. That's when the real journey begins. There's a moment, a split second, when a woman realizes she no longer fears herself. Not her darkness, not her hunger, not the vast, untamed wilderness of her own soul. That's the moment she becomes dangerous. Not because she's cruel, not because she's ruthless, but because she's free. And freedom is contagious. Jung knew this. He saw that when a woman integrates her shadows, when she stops begging for permission and starts trusting herself, she doesn't just transform her life. She disrupts the entire system that relied on her silence. Think about it. A woman who owns her voice teaches others to speak. A woman who sets boundaries shows others they can too. A woman who refuses to shrink makes space for others to rise. This is why the world resists her awakening. Because once one woman remembers her power, it becomes harder to convince the rest they don't have it. So here's the real question. What would happen if you stopped fearing your own depth? If you stopped asking, "Do I deserve this?" and started knowing, "This is mine"? Jung's answer? You wouldn't just change your life, you'd change the world. The most radical thing a woman can do is believe herself. Not the voices that say she's too much, not the stories that say she's not enough, but the truth that hums in her bones, the one that's been there all along. Will you listen to it? If this journey resonated with you, tell me in the comments, what part of your shadow are you ready to reclaim? And if you know a woman who needs to hear this, share it with her. The revolution starts when we wake each other up.